Hey guys, what's up? How is it going? Let me introduce to you some more aspects of our indoor ecosystem and specifically your indoor ecosystem. So, is it a healthy one or is it perhaps not? So, first of all, let's go into detail what an indoor ecosystem is. And let me assure you that each and every one of you guys have one. Because when you're living in a house or an apartment, doesn't matter, this forms a closed environment, and that can very well be called an ecosystem. So everything you put in this space that is sealed off from nature and from other apartments, other houses, that creates its own environment, or with a fancier term, ecosystem. Okay, but why do I like this fancy term? Is because it really encompasses the whole idea of our immediate environment being first of all closed off from all other environments, and also that it is a living ecosystem and everything affects everything. What your materials are inside your apartment, in your house, in your home, what kind of things you bring in there. Is it a new piece of furniture? Is it some rug? Is it, let's say, it's a painting, or is some room being renovated, being painted? How do you clean? How do you don't clean? How much clutter is there? How many people live there? Pets, and so on and so on. So let me introduce myself at this point. My name is Robert J. Janetsko. For the past 20 years, I have been in the indoor air industry, selling solutions, selling products and machines to help people to lead a healthier life and clean their indoor air. What I noticed is quite alarming. It's this: there is not really one cure for everything, because first of all, there is not enough information on how bad the situation really is. So the inside air, it might be even 50 times worse than the outside air, and we spend around 98% of our time inside, and that's a lot, because we rarely go outside. If we don't have a work that's outside, we just use the outside to transport ourselves to the next location, which is usually inside. So this is one of our biggest problems in the world today, that our insides, our indoors are actually quite unhealthy. They're quite toxic in some cases. And this all comes from the fact that the ecosystem, the inside or indoor ecosystem, is consisting of a lot of crap you shouldn't have around you or your family, especially not your children. So let me tell you something about this drawing behind me here. I mean, I'm so bad at drawing, I can't even draw a house, but it's kind of a house. The roof is all crooked there. But what is the indoor ecosystem as a mind tool? It's very easily explained. So we have 5 floors or 5 different categories in which to think and how to really start giving points to our own ecosystem that we have currently. So the first floor is the inhabitants. So that's you, that's me in my home here in Helsinki, Finland. What kind of activities are going on inside? And I mean by this, what kind of cleaning methods are applied, how often, with what kind of cleaning agents, uh, how many people live in that space. Might be that, let's say, this is actually a 2-room apartment where we live now with my partner. It's not it's not that big, obviously, and if there was a third or fourth person here, that would be very crowded. And of course, the particles that each of us shed as humans, they are mind-blowing, because we shed dead skin in the rate of 3 to 5 grams. Sorry guys, I don't know how much that is in ounces, but over the year you shed many kilos or many pounds of dead skin, and it's usually at your place, in your home, and it's so small that it flies all over the place all the time. You breathe it in and it gets more and more. So these are just 2 aspects here of the first floor. Altogether we have 5 aspects in every category, so altogether 25 ways of viewing or taking care of your own indoor ecosystem. The second floor is called climate, of course, the indoor climate. So I don't care what is outside. Like Finland is a small country in Europe, in Northern Europe. We only have like 5 million inhabitants, and the country is very large, very much of untouched nature, pristine nature, almost all around. But that doesn't make a goddamn difference when it comes to your indoor air. And actually in this country, we have a lot of problems concerning this. So houses are normally built too tight. The air circulation, the connection to the outside is very poor. And we have to rely on machines that provide us with air inside. And we don't get really fresh air to these apartments and houses, especially the modern ones. So, but that's a whole other problem actually. But here in this category of climate, we take a closer look at what kind of machinery you actually have to take care of the air circulation, what kind of filters, how often are they changed, and what kind of air purifiers do you have in your home currently. And some of us, the majority of us, don't have any kind of, and that's alarming because we should have. Number 3 is furnishing. So furnishing, it means, of course, all the furniture. I'm sitting on this kind of chair right now, and there's a sofa there. The walls, they're covered with some substance. It could be paint, it could be some veneer, it could be anything. So these substances actually create the majority of your space. And if you start to categorize them, there might be dozens or maybe hundreds of different materials used in furnishing of the inside of your home. And each of these materials, let's say it's a wooden floor. So you take a piece of that plank or whatever it is, and you can break even that into all the substances. So there might be 80, 90, 100 different things you put in that piece of furnishing alone. And what you end up with is a real cocktail of all sorts of chemicals, because nobody really buys a wooden chair these days because it's quite impossible. It looks largely like a wooden chair, let's say, but so much chemicals that you need them to make it look a certain way, and to bend the wood and then to glue it together and so on. So you have more chemicals than wood in a wooden chair, for example. And let's say you buy a new one, and I don't want to mention names like yeah, but if you bring it inside and it's new and you build it together with your own little two hands with a lot of effort, then what you end up with is actually something that for weeks and even months, in some cases even years, will give a slow chemical trace into your living space. So this will affect the whole ecosystem, and definitely you will have some sort of side effect from that. Okay, the building itself, that's the fourth floor of our indoor ecosystem. And what is meant by that is simply the materials being used in building that house or that apartment complex or whatever. And this, of course, also applies to your office space, to the schools where the kids go to shopping malls, and so on and so on. So concrete is probably the most used substance, building material, and a bit frightening is that nobody really knows what concrete is, because it's said that it's protected. There are many companies that produce concrete, and they don't want to mention what is in it because of competition. And the truth is that they put so much chemicals in that concrete to prevent it from catching mold in the construction phase, for example, that you shouldn't really go near to it. And this is something that every insider in the building industry knows, that it, in the least, will give you a rash, and you shouldn't be breathing that stuff. So the fact is that almost every structure is made out of this stuff, and we don't know what it is, but it's not healthy, that's for sure. Okay, want to make a mention here, of course, there are alternatives like wood. Let's say maybe the most natural one would be a log house. So you use these huge trunk trees, and especially how they build it in Canada, or let's say here in Finland, that's pretty much the same way they do it with the log houses. The problem is that if there are not the original logs, which in many cases it's not, then also a lot of chemicals are applied to just glue the sheets of logs together to make them a certain size. So even that natural way of building is many times jeopardized and not so healthy after all. So here, the fifth floor of our indoor ecosystem is then the infrastructure. That's, okay, that's a big word, but let's say it's like the 2-mile radius from your home or house. Everything like the streets, like how much traffic is there, how many buildings are there, because one of the things here is that buildings themselves give also out emissions. Yeah, you heard me. So buildings are actually causing small particles to be all the time. And if you live in an area with a lot of houses and homes in the city center, like I do here, also one of the emissions, they come from other buildings. So this is very briefly your indoor ecosystem, and how we will, on this channel and on our Facebook page, on our YouTube channel, on Instagram, on Twitter, and on our website, talk about the indoor ecosystem. And our goal number one is to provide you with the cutting edge information, articles, scientific papers made easy to understand, and tools, and also products and services that will actually help you to create a safe and healthy indoor ecosystem for you and your children.